I'd like to introduce another force of nature, a man I've had the pleasure to meet before, who dined at my restaurant yesterday, and thank God didn't send any food back. And I've had the pleasure of dining at your restaurant before. Deepanker Khosla, whose famous Haoma restaurant, a 1 Michelin star rated and the first Green Star rating in Thailand, is an incredible piece of sustainability. Outside of the restaurant, though, I'm incredibly impressed by your 20,000 chickens, or however many chickens you actually have, and so I'd love to hear a bit more about all of that. Thanks.
I will be talking about that. Awesome, thank you. Ivan, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. When I moved to Thailand in 2014, I was executive chef of a restaurant that I opened that was doing extremely well. 200 covers a day is a good number for a few restaurants that cook 50 kilos of chicken tikka masala every morning, but that did not resonate with me when I turned 25. So I fucked up and I invested all of my money in opening my own restaurant at the age of 26. That mistake wasn't a mistake. It doesn't seem like a mistake anymore, but it was in the beginning. Those are my hands when I first started my restaurant. We're located in the heart of the city, where the trains intersect themselves. The MRT, the rail that comes from the airport, and the underground, the BTS, we are 750 meters away from there. And my vision was that sustainability, people are migrating from rural areas, from smaller towns, into the city. So the sustainability idea needs to move into the city, not outside the city, is the perspective that I work with. That people live here, they want the product here. If I really have to travel 60 kilometers, if guests have to travel 50 kilometers to go outside the city to visit my restaurant that's sustainable, then they are generating enough carbon footprint that would otherwise not be if I was in the city. We started a farm in Chiang Mai and then pulled it down into Bangkok, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But the entire agenda of the restaurant, of how we do, what we do, was very, very sustainability driven before, till I grew up and realized that people are not coming to my restaurant to eat sustainability. They're coming to eat food, and food must be delicious. Food must have its own values. And how do we combine both those things? How do we combine the values where we come from? How do we combine the idea of, I am a migrant who's left my little town. I come from a very small town in India, only 4 million people, so how do we bring all of that together into one space and be sustainable in product, sustainable in processes, and sustainable in people? And these are the 3 P's of my business that I will speak to you about today. I will show you a little video that we did last year with 50 Best to showcase what work we have done, what work we did in the pandemic, and how we are continuing that. So we'll start with that, and then we'll keep talking, please.
Hi, I'm Chef Deepanker Khosla, chef owner of restaurant Haoma Bangkok, and I'm very grateful to be awarded a Champion of Change by the World's 50 Best Restaurants 2021.
Coming from Allahabad, which is like a melting pot of cultures and cuisines in India, I grew up in a city of migrants which had a diaspora of cuisine available. I grew up in a house that was full of aromas and smells, sitting by my mother on the shelf in the kitchen. That's where I developed my passion for cooking. The chefs of today, the cooks of the new generation, I think they should be looking further from how beautiful their food is going to look on the plate, how many likes their pictures are going to get on Instagram, to what is really food and nurturing. Almost every employee in my kitchen at the moment is all migrants. It is very important for us as chefs to be able to nurture people. It is everything for me and my team today. All 40 of us have worked tirelessly to be able to come and be sitting here and doing this today.
My name is Akhilesh Kumar. I'm working as assistant restaurant manager at Haoma Bangkok. We are all migrants here, And chef has given me this opportunity to work at this level of fine dining, and we work for a unified goal, which is working with the nature. Being from a small village in India and working today at Haoma, it's like a dream come true for me.
There is a pandemic, the pandemic of a virus, but there's a bigger pandemic, that is the pandemic of hunger. 17th March 2020 is when we were first asked to close our restaurant. I was sitting down here with Vishwas, my general manager in Somalia, and my business partner Deepak, and we said, how can we use what we have to make the most of it? And the answer at that moment came that our needs are big, but the needs of the migrants who've been just cut off are bigger. That was the birth of No One Hungry. No One Hungry does not see caste or culture. If you need a meal, you will get a meal. Currently, how we are working on is thrice a week, that is on Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. We are cooking the meals and we are sending them out to the communities. Every single buddy in the kitchen, all 12 of them are involved in cooking for the program, and some of them are involved with me in the distribution. 15 months into the pandemic, No One Hungry has evolved. We've joined hands with some communities here in Bangkok that are food rescuers. The community leaders come out there and collect the food. They then take us to their communities where we meet these people and hand them the meals over. It is my responsibility, it is my duty to be able to help those who, just like me, have displaced looking for opportunity. The Champions of Change Award by San Pellegrino will not only help us catapult the No One Hungry project, but the donations will help us create a full-fledged all-time kitchen for No One Hungry, providing meals to thousands and thousands of people who really need these meals every day. I believe that we need to work with nature, not against nature. That's why at Haoma we have a bottom-up approach. We have our own farm in Chiang Mai, around 3 Rai, where we grow all of our produce that is cooked here in Haoma. We work with our farm and our farmers, and they tell us what nature has to offer. And with that is how I design my menus and how I work with them. Sustainability today is not just about adding value, it's about nurturing the nature. And this is something that is imbibed in my soul, that is imbibed in the culture that I was raised in. When I came in, I planted 11,000 trees here in the vicinity of this place. I grow my own honey with my bee hotel. I have over 40 varieties of plants that are growing here, 200,000 liters of rainwater that is being harvested, and more than 1,600 fish that is grown on the premises of the restaurant. I want to be able to give back to the environment. Every single element on the menu, every single dish that we cook is done keeping this in mind. Cooking today is not just about how fancy you can make the produce look on your plate. It's about nurturing. I urge for you to go back and see where the food is coming from. What are the sources and how can you help nature and not work against it?
So guys, that's basically a gist of what we did and what we continue doing. As a part of the No One Hungry program, we created this entire infrastructure because I personally feel that sustainability actually about nature. Nature has this very strong power of sustaining itself. If you leave an empty, a great example is that there was an empty piece of land that was next to our restaurant that stayed empty for a year, and now it's a dense jungle. And it's a really, really dense piece of land that you just can't walk past. There's just trees everywhere. Nobody actually went in there to plant the trees. It just grew by itself. But the sustainability of people is something that I work very closely with, and I begin. These are the few agendas that we work with in the restaurant. We want to be able to, share the wealth of what we have learned. We want to be able to encourage people to be able to live better lives of how, when they come to the restaurant, we do take them to a tour. We take them through, some of you are sitting in this room have eaten in the restaurant recently, and we take you through this entire tour of 10 minutes before you actually sit down in the restaurant and dine with us, of what we are doing and how can this impact your daily food choices and what you can do about it. We speak about economic growth. Economic growth is essential, as was being spoken about before. That if the people, I personally believe that because the spices, as she was talking about, are actually being grown in this part of the world, and they grow and they go and get packaged in a different sector. When they come back, because we buy a packaged product, we pay more money. But when our farmer brings it in a bag to us, we go like, oh, that's too expensive. So economic growth of our area is a very core focus on sustainability for me again. And infrastructure related, developments, as we have done ourselves. So in the pandemic, we started a farm. We were closed for almost 20 months in Bangkok. 20 to 22 months of no restaurant gave us time enough to be able to start a farm. I started with 100 chickens. If you don't collect the eggs, I can tell you that they multiply faster than rabbits. We have 1,500, 2,000 of them at the moment. We've got goats that are multiplying. Our goats just gave birth last week. And just to be able to keep developing on that infrastructure. This is something that we do at the restaurant. Our restaurant, when we speak about zero waste, a lot of times in the eyes of the diner, and a lot of times in the eyes of the consumer, zero waste means what is going out of the restaurant, right? What is in your trash can? How much waste are you generating? But for me, I take a bottom-up approach on this, that if I don't get what I don't need, like plastics, like, if I do not need a certain part of the animal, I don't call for it, just to be able to, or I don't use a product. Let's say I buy a cauliflower and I just use the florets out of it. I do not design my menus that way, so that we don't have to generate waste coming out of it. We have an aquaponic system in the restaurant. I do rainwater harvesting. I collect 200,000 liters of rainwater in tanks that we buried in the ground in the house that we are in. We grow 40 different varieties of herbs. This water that is in the restaurant is served still and sparkling to our guests. We do not have any bottled water. We purify our rainwater, and then we serve this to our guests, because I personally feel that the Indian food that I cook, regional Indian food, classic Indian food, does not really need water in a glass bottle coming from a lake in Switzerland. So it's just what the gods give me in Sukhumvit is good enough for me to be able to drink that. So we've got that going in the aquaponic system. We have the entire system where we have a program that has started. I am entirely responsible for the dishes that go out of the kitchen, but my sous chefs are entirely responsible for dishes, and also a program that I run there. We call it WOW, which is Wealth of Waste. What can they develop from different waste? And something phenomenal that has come up this year is we do all of the composting for the plants that we grow out of the aquaponic system, the edible flowers and all of that stuff. But the next slide, this is something that has changed the way we used our waste before. So all of the waste from the kitchen, we take that, we put it through a pulverizer, then we put them on silpats, and we bake them in the oven. And then we take it through a small pellet maker and turn it into pellets that is fed to our fish, the 1,500 fish that we have in the restaurant. Yeah. This is a fish system that we have. You see the main tanks. We have 4 some tanks like this. This is what a traditional house built in the 70s had, water tanks under the ground. We just added 2 more tanks in there. Each water tank takes around 50 to 70,000 liters of water. We grow our fish in this system and in the tanks below, and we feed them the waste of the kitchen. The waste of the fish, which is the excrete from the body of the fish, is then broken down into nitrates and nitrites, and we grow all of our products in that water. The gills of the fish then clear the water once again. We pass it through a purification system, which is in our bar, and we just open a tap and boom, we get water that the guests drink, the water that we cook with. So this is an entire ecosystem that we have developed over there that runs in Rotary. This is on the back, behind the kitchen. Now, zero waste, again, this is an essential topic for me to discuss, because this particular word is what made me quit my job. While I was in a very comfortable job, 25 years old, as an executive chef of a restaurant that did great numbers, I was getting well paid. I wanted to actually develop a zero waste philosophy. So I quit my job and I started a food truck, which was a 100% food, zero waste food truck, in which I drove around 20,000 kilometers to be able to make the money to do my restaurant. Today we are debt-free, we are investor-free. I've done it by myself because of this reason, that I think those businesses are a bit more sustainable. Of course, that's my view. Elimination of plastic. So In the background, the bag that you see is very essential to me because this is something that we work with our suppliers with. So once the tablecloth in the restaurant, so we have a program where we turn our used oil. I learned it from Chef Dylan at Bolan in Bangkok, how to turn your oil into soap. We use that soap to wash our dusters and our tablecloths. Once the tablecloths are done, which is around 250, 300 washes, we turn them into fashion, which is our aprons in the restaurant. So the chefs then wear those aprons. Once those aprons are done and the fashion is not fashionable enough to be going in front of the guests anymore, they turn into these bags. And then we give these bags to our vegetable supplier, our meat supplier, our fish supplier, and then they put these products in here and they supply to us. That's how we eliminate plastic. It wasn't tough at all. It was very simple because a tailor in our neighborhood stitched them for us. It costed me 20 baht, that is 80 Singapore cents, to be able to stitch one of these bags. Yeah? Next one, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going too fast. Okay, a bag, styrofoam nursery. So initially when we started the restaurant, I learned all of this stuff because I was all of 25 when I opened my restaurant, 26. So I didn't know that there were going to be so many stages at which we would have to encounter waste, and we had to play with it. So we ordered fish from our supplier, and we got a lot of styrofoam. And styrofoam stays, like if you use the piece of styrofoam right now, and then there was an ice age, and then there were dinosaurs, and then we were born back again, and then we had kether talks, and then that styrofoam came out of the land, it would still be there. So it stays much longer than plastics themselves. And we turned all of our styrofoam into nursery. We used different styrofoam that our neighbor restaurants had, different chefs had. We cut them into smaller pieces. And the giveaway in the first and the second year of the restaurant was actually a small box of styrofoam that had compost from our waste and a seed for them to plant and keep on their window, or to plant it in the ground, yeah, using it as a potting mix. Composting, we are now working with 100% solid waste recycled, so I process all of my solid waste. Fish food that we spoke about before, and liquid waste, which is rainwater harvesting. We harvest all of our rainwater and we process all of our grey water at this moment. This is something that is very, very essential to me, and this was the challenge that I've given myself since we opened. Every single time we do the menu, we do a 0-kilometer dish. Ivan was there recently. And he tried the dish where we grow all the ingredients of our all the ingredients going into the dish. We grow them on the premises of the restaurant, and now on the premises of our farm, which is not in Chiang Mai anymore, but 17 kilometers away from the restaurant. This dish over here that keeps coming and going is, oh good. Right, this dish over here on the outside is the fish that grows in the tank. The green layers that you see are the greens that are growing in the garden. And then I create this thing to add to the system, which is natural microorganism system called FPJ, or fermented plant juice. Greens that you cannot consume, we make FPJ with, and it has a massive Scooby on top of it. That's a fried Scooby in the center. And that's a dish that we created by growing products on the premises of a restaurant in the middle of Bangkok. Next one, please.
Is that going to help?
We're good?
Yeah, next slide.
Okay. Pandemic chicken farm, as I was speaking about, we've got 1,500 of these bad boys, and we are now, the next 0-kilometer dish that we have on the menu is the one in the next picture. We're using two different parts. The skin of the chicken is in the cylinder. We turn it into a delicious kebab. The prime cuts of the chicken, which are the thigh and the breast, with some chutney on the side. Everything else goes into that egg. We turn the egg yolks into botarga. This on the menu, this is another 0-kilometer dish that I'm cooking at the moment. Every single menu that we come up with, whenever we come up with, every twice a year or thrice a year, we do one 0-kilometer dish. These are some of our kids from the farm. Again, this is how we turn our water into what we do. We work with a company called Fresh from Nordak. We just connect our rainwater harvesting system into these tanks. The water comes out like a beer tap. This is something that we have worked with, and I think is an important conversation to be had. we are actually investing a lot of time and energy and sustainability. When I first started using the word sustainability in Bangkok 7 years ago, you could walk into a 7-Eleven and buy yourself a bottle of water. It would be a plastic bottle. It would be given with a plastic straw that was wrapped in a plastic, and then you would get a plastic bag for that. All you spent was 5 baht. And I would like to believe that there were at least 1 million of those bottles sold every day in a city with 12 million people. And that was the amount that was being generated. We discussed the idea about plastic, which is the larger devil of sustainability. But the biggest for me is energy. Because the way we develop our energy, we are sitting in this room conversing about sustainability, but there is so much power being consumed at the moment as we are here. The air conditioning of this room alone requires tons and tons of energy. To fire this screen this big requires tons of energy. So what are we doing about that? We've already fired our farm, our poultry farm and our goats and cows with solar energy. We are now working with, there is a company, and I saw this on Kickstart. Kids from Chennai, they have come up with a technology of hybrid solar and wind energy, and our decision is, our vision is to be able to move to that in the future. The government of Bangkok does not allow us to go beyond 30% off-grid. However, we are trying to lobby that, and we are trying to speak against it. That's pretty much what I wanted to say, and this is my favorite thing to say. Every man once in their lives must turn the soil with their own bare hands and feel the intensity of being one with nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepankar. Deepankar is going to be here all afternoon, so if you have any questions, now that we're taking a small little break,